All right, welcome to Audiobook Basics for Authors, Part 5. Today I'm going to talk about why you might want to narrate yourself and how to do it. Going to cover the equipment you will need too. There are two circumstances in which it might be a good idea to record your own audiobook. Obviously, you might be doing this to save money, but long term, if you end up with a poor product, you'll be worse off than if you paid for a good one, right? Remember, you're locked into a 7-year contract. And even if you are both author and narrator, you can't just yank the audiobook down if you decide, for example, that you want to replace it with an upgraded version later. Even getting edits through are a massive pain to put out after the fact. So you do want to make sure you end up with a decent product here because you're stuck with it for 7 years. The first circumstance in which you should definitely consider recording your own audiobook is if it's non-fiction. Especially if you regularly speak on the topic. You will have a core of fans who are used to hearing you speak, and even a good narrator will not do the same justice to this topic on which you are knowledgeable and passionate as you will yourself. Okay? Non-fiction, you should definitely consider self-narrating. This also goes for poetry, by the way. Even a really good actor will just not have the cadence and rhythm you will bring to your own poems. So non-fiction and poetry, definitely think about it. The second circumstance covers fiction and when you might want to narrate your own. And I'm going to be a bit harsh here. You need to have a good voice with a clear, understandable accent, and ideally at least a little bit of amateur dramatics in your background. Audiobook narration is acting, and it's quite physically demanding. It can be very hard on your voice, especially if you're untrained. Give it a try. Go and sit somewhere quiet, have your book on a Kindle or a tablet, read a chapter or two out loud, and record it in an app on your phone. Listen back to it and see how you feel. Your own voice is likely to make you cringe a bit at first. Try and get past that. We all have to get past that. It's not easy. Listen carefully. Compare it to audiobooks with professional narrators. Not the sound quality, but the narration itself. Are you bringing emotion to the work? Can you clearly distinguish which characters are speaking at any given time? Maybe ask a friend who listens to audiobooks for their opinion. Or if you're really brave, post a link in an audiobook listeners group on Facebook and ask strangers for their honest opinions of your performance. If you are happy with how you sound, then fiction audiobook narration might be for you. Note that what you've recorded on your phone is absolutely not high enough quality for distribution. That was just for you to figure out if you want to do it before you go out and start investing in some equipment. Alright, so you've decided you want to do your own narration. At this point, you need a room set up and some equipment and at least a little bit of training. One other thing I'm going to recommend here, you should look at hiring a professional to edit and master for you and a proofer. Getting the technical specifications right is the hardest part, the steepest part of this learning curve. And remember that 5-to-1 ratio I talked about back in video 2 for the number of hours to make one finished hour? It's more like 10-to-1 when you first start out, and most of that is at editing, mastering and proofing. You can get a professional audio engineer for $60 per finished hour, and they will make you sound far better than you ever could. Even if you decide to do your own engineering, I would still recommend hiring a pro engineer to at least listen to a sample of your raw and your finished audio side by side, so the same piece, raw and finished, and give you their feedback and some advice. Or you could waste a lot of time. I think you should also use a proofer. This could be a friend or a beta reader. You might even swap proofing with someone else. or a pro proofer usually charges about $20 per finished hour. A good proofer will read the book with their eyes while they are listening to it, and they will find even the tiniest of mistakes. The biggest reason why you need to use a proofer is you don't know what you don't know. There might be a word you mispronounce all the time, and you have no idea it's not meant to be said that way. A proofer is going to find that for you, along with many other errors. And incidentally, even if you use a pro proofer, or you've paid for PFH narration with proofing included, you should always proof listen to the audiobook yourself before you upload it for release. Even if you hate listening to audiobooks. Nobody knows your work like you do, and you should still always check it because you can get technical glitches in file transfers. Always be the last set of ears on that book before it's uploaded for release. Alright, let's talk about what you're going to need if you're going to record your own audiobook, and I'm going to make 2 recommendations here. One of them is a book by my fellow Aussie author, Renee Conalty. It's called Narrated by the Author. You'll find the link under the video. She has it in ebook, paperback and audiobook, narrated by herself. And in it, Renee goes through how to find the best space for recording where you live and how to understand the technical specs you need to meet. I started recording with this book and less than $100 worth of gear. And with that, I was recording professional standard audio straight away. I got hired by another author to start working for them within a month. Within 2 months, I had 5 clients. What gear is that, I hear you say? I'll get to that in a minute. I've got another recommendation for you first. There's a pro narrator called Crystal Vasher. She has a free video course on making audiobooks. She goes over a lot of the same ground as Renee does in her book, but there's a few other tweaks in the engineering, and she talks some about equipment. She has a lot of equipment recommendations on her site too. You can find it at krw.teachable.com, and I'll put that link under the video too. Alright, what do you need to start audio production? First off, you need a space that's suitable for recording. That might not be in your home. You might need to look into finding a studio somewhere. But if it is in your home, the most likely spot is in your walk-in wardrobe. It's a small enclosed space surrounded by nice, soft, noise-absorbing fabrics. The least likely spot is in a bathroom. All those hard surfaces make sound echo, make it sound terrible. You need some software, and the one I would recommend is called Audacity. It is free. You need 2 other plugins called RMS Normalize and ACX Check, which will help you meet ACX standards. You'll find the links to download Audacity, RMS Normalize and ACX Check under this video. There are other recording softwares out there which narrators use. I am still working with Audacity. I also have a program called RX7 Standard now, which gives me some more tools to use with it. Removing mouth noises and loud breaths automatically, that sort of stuff. But you can absolutely meet ACX standards just using Audacity. I did for months. You can also spend a lot of money on a microphone, or not a lot of money. You cannot record on your phone or using a built-in microphone in your computer. Please trust me on this, you cannot. You need 4 things: a microphone stand, a pop filter, and something to read your book off. Not a paperback and not a computer screen for that last one. An iPad, a tablet, or a Kindle is ideal. I use a Samsung tablet. And I copy the individual chapter I'm working on into a Google Doc, and I mark it up using highlights. So, for example, if I have a line of dialogue, and "she whispered" is the speech tag at the end of it, I use a colour to highlight that so that I check before I record it, and I don't do it in my normal voice for that character and then have to go back and re-record it in my stage whisper. Okay, so it's quite likely you've already got something to read your book off. So let's look at the other three. Microphone, a mic stand, and a pop filter. The microphone is where you can spend a lot of money, but honestly, first up, don't. Professional narrators use a type of microphone called a large diaphragm condenser mic, but they are incredibly sensitive and you need a well-soundproof studio. I upgraded to one recently, my Rode NT1 with an AI1 audio interface, and it makes me sound amazing, but it picks up the slightest sound, things like my tummy rumbling. It can drive you insane. Need some tweaking to get the settings right, and then you need more engineering to clean up little noises. What you want is probably a USB condenser microphone. You can buy one of these in a bundle from Amazon with a stand and a pop filter. I'll put links to a couple of different bundles I would suggest under the video. They are all under $100. You don't need to spend more than that first up. For stands, you can have either a desk stand or a boom arm. I like boom arms better because I can get the mic closer to my face with it. And you should be about 6 inches from the mic with the pop filter between it and your mouth. This is a pop filter, a little screen. You do need one. They reduce what they call plosives, which are sharp popping sounds your mouth makes when you say the letter P, for example. Okay, you do need a pop filter. They're about $7. If you already have a mic and a mic stand, get yourself a pop filter. You do need one. Okay, so less than $100 worth of gear, some free software, a bit of training, and you're good to go. One other thing you might want to think about is the computer you're recording on. Computers have internal fans and they can be pretty noisy. It can affect the noise floor of your recording badly. That means the noise when you're not making any sound at all. It needs to be below a certain level to meet ACX standards. You can reduce it with Audacity, but if you do too much noise reduction, you'll start to sound tinny and weird and fake. You want a really quiet room to begin with. Laptop fans can affect that. You might want to think about putting a cheap monitor in your recording booth, along with a wireless keyboard and a mouse, and running the cables outside the booth to keep that fan noise out there. Technically, you don't need a monitor in front of you. But if you are going to do punch and roll recordings, it means you make corrections as you go along rather than cleaning them up in editing. And if you are going to work with an engineer, you will need to learn how to do punch and roll. You will have to have a monitor so that you can see what you're doing. So that's something to think about. Now, I could spend 10 hours going through how to do audio recordings and how to edit and master them, but honestly, other people have already covered this ground pretty well. Read Renee's book, go through Crystal's course. You'll have the basics down. You'll be able to get your work to pass ACX standards. Okay. Let's move on and talk about what to do once you actually have a finished audiobook, whether you recorded it yourself or whether you paid a pro to record it for you. Let's talk about what happens once you've got those final files ready to go.